I want to show you some of the latest revelations about what's been occurring in Ukraine. A warning though, especially if you're watching with kids in the room, these are graphic images. And let's have a look at this latest report from Sky News UK.
A mass grave for what Ukraine has called a massacre. Russian troops accused of killing civilians before pulling out of this town close to Kyiv. No hiding the horror. Unclear how many bodies are lying in this makeshift resting place. More hell in the basement of a house in Bucha. Ukraine's military says Russian forces used it as a torture chamber. Victims allegedly had their hands bound before being shot. Evidence of potential war crimes above ground as well. The brother of Kyiv's mayor documented what he saw.
This is not special operation. This is not military objects. This is civilians. They've been shot in the head with the tied hands behind their back. This is genocide of the Ukrainian population.
Ukraine says hundreds of bodies have been found in this town and others northwest of the capital. It's accused Russia of being worse than Islamic State, though Moscow's denied responsibility.
Just shocking stuff, isn't it? Let me bring in Professor Marko Pavlyshyn, who's a Professor of Ukrainian Studies at Monash University. Professor, thanks for joining us. We see evidence and we hear talk about war crimes and promises to try and seek justice to bring Vladimir Putin to justice. But in reality, this will never happen, will it?
No. Nevertheless, it is important that steps be taken in the international community to make the steps that would lead to Putin's indictment for these crimes, even though, of course, he will never leave Russia and never place himself in the situation where he might be in the position of being arrested.
Marko, when we see this unfolding in Ukraine, the resistance there being so much stronger than just about anybody expected, especially what Moscow expected. Now, it's a significant army, a very large army that Ukraine already had. What else is it about the country that explains its military performance here? Is it tied up in their own strong sense of nationalism?
It's tied up with the fact that for 30 years, Ukraine has had the experience of being an independent sovereign state. And within that independent sovereign state to have developed a functioning democracy, which on two previous occasions it has defended during the Orange Revolution and then during the Revolution of Dignity in 2013-14. So Ukrainians know what it is that they will lose should they not now fight to defend their country, its territorial integrity, and its sovereignty.
Look, it's inspirational to see what they're doing, and of course Australians heard from Volodymyr Zelensky addressing our parliament last week. He made a request for more bushmasters. He's going to get them. But as we rush to try and support Ukraine with humanitarian and military aid and support their resistance, is there a real prospect that they could win the war? In other words, force Russia out of their sovereign borders to leave them alone? Or could this resistance just result in even more diabolical tactics from Russia in an attempt to obliterate Kiev and other major cities?
I think we can predict that Ukrainians will continue to resist and will fight to retain their country. Their aim will be to push the Russians back to the borders as they were prior to the annexation of Crimea, prior to the creation of those occupied territories in the Far East of Ukraine. That seems certain. What the outcome of the struggle will be, obviously we cannot predict at the moment. We know that Ukrainian negotiators are constantly meeting with their Russian counterparts. Those negotiations at the moment have not brought agreement. They're very far from agreement. The demands of the Russian Federation continue to be much as they were when first enunciated by Vladimir Putin when the war
yes,
began.
Indeed. International pressure has to continue on Putin and Russia. Thanks so much for joining us, Marko. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.